Hello, everyone. This is News Now from the Belmont Journal, and we have with us Lisa Gibalerio, Prevention Specialist with Wayside Youth and Family Support Network. Lisa is also coordinator of the Belmont Wellness Coalition, and I'm your host, Mike Crowley. Today, we're talking about effective parenting and how not to nag our teens to have an impact. And Lisa, I'm sure we're all guilty of this, nagging our kids. So I would like to ask you to start. Nagging our teenagers. It's a common struggle for parents, isn't it?
Absolutely, Mike. It is something that I hear from parents all the time, that they feel like, they ask their kids to do something, it doesn't happen, and then they get put in a position of just going back and forth and kind of getting in a power struggle. So it is a very common struggle for parents of tweens and teens that both parties end up feeling frustrated.
Well, what are some of the strategies then, Lisa, that parents can use to curb some of the nagging and maybe also have a positive impact?
Yeah, so I guess I would frame this conversation this way, in that if you find that you're nagging your kids, think of that as a red herring, that something needs to be improved upon, that the communication needs to be, you need to just go back and start with the basics, start with, what you're asking them to do, how you're asking them to do it, how you're getting their buy-in, because nagging is definitely a sign that this whole thing needs to be reworked. So here's what the experts say, Mike. They advise parents to think about what you are requesting before requesting it. So some of the things to think about is what you're asking age appropriate. Is it reasonable? You don't want to be asking, a young child to all of a sudden start doing their laundry if you've never taken them through the steps of doing their laundry. That could be incredibly overwhelming. So make sure that the child is prepared, that you've done some basic training before making requests of them. They also advise that as a parent, we can't control every facet of what our kids are doing and how our kids will manage their time. So to pick our battles, so to speak, carefully, for example, maybe it's the schoolwork that a parent will focus on and let slide some of the home chores. Maybe it's another priority, but whatever it is, just to be careful that knowing you can't get everything that you want with kids. They are busy, they are stressed. With regard to what you're asking, be explicit. The experts tell us to say a by when. I need you to do this by Saturday. So be very clear about what you're asking and the deadline. If there's going to be a consequence, Mike, for not following through on the kid's part, be very clear, parents, what that consequence is. And then you have to enforce the consequence, because we all know that if we lay one out and then don't follow through, it loses all impact and effectiveness down the road. When you get frustrated, parents, really helpful to frame your frustration in a way that your kids can hear it. For example, when you said you would clean your room, empty the dishwasher, fill out that job application, fill in the blank. When you said you would do blank by Sunday evening and it didn't happen, I felt really frustrated. I felt upset. So when blank happened or didn't happen, I felt a certain way. That is the non-judgmental way to speak, and it can actually help kids to hear what you're saying. One other tip that the experts say, Mike, is to give your kid almost a menu of choices. For example, you might have a few indoor chores, a few outdoor chores, maybe something related to schoolwork or hygiene. You might have floss every night. Empty the dishwasher, pick up your room, and say to them, you have to pick 3 out of these 6 things. You could also have a little box for your non-negotiables. Flossing and brushing is not negotiable. Showering every other day is not negotiable. So parents are allowed to pick a couple that they are really going to have the kid hone in on, but then let the child choose some of the other ones. Let them, some kids might just do better with outdoor things than indoor. I guess I would also underscore the importance of letting natural consequences happen. Do not swoop in and empty the dishwasher. If your child said that they would do it, you gotta just hang back and let them do it. Acknowledge them when they've made an effort. thank them for, putting good effort forward, but don't swoop in and make it okay. Same with schoolwork. If a child is starting to fall behind because they're not doing homework, have that conversation, express your feelings on it, but you can't swoop in and do it for them, just so that they get it done. So those are some of the tips, Mike, that the experts put forth to try to make this better for parents and kids alike.
So Lisa, these all sound like very useful tips, but what if parents make use of some of these strategies that you're suggesting and the kids still aren't, getting things done, living up to parent standards?
Well, then I guess I would go back to the child and try to engage in a conversation and try to do some validating on what they're feeling. For example, they may give you an important reason why something didn't get done. And then you can validate that. Maybe you can do some reflective listening. I hear you saying that, you got overwhelmed with homework, or I hear you saying that, that's just not something you're interested in. And then you kind of renegotiate the contract. And like I said earlier, express how you're feeling about it, and make sure with the younger kids that they have, they know how to do what you've put forth. I think parents also need to recognize that it's not going to be always up to their standards. If you hand a 10-year-old a vacuum and say, this is your Saturday morning chore, and the kid buys into it, just know that the vacuuming isn't going to be up to most adult standards. But it does get better if we don't swoop in and do it for them. If we just kind of ride the learning curve, after a month, you might find that the vacuuming is, pretty good. But again, I think it's really important that we just keep the lines of communication open, listen, and always know that whatever we've laid out with regard to like a contract with our kids, whether it's written or just implied, that we go back to it and negotiate it. Again, give them choices, acknowledge them where you can. But if you're frustrated, vent your feelings of frustration. It's much more effective to vent your feelings of frustration than to get into a nagging cycle.
All right, Lisa. Well, this is great advice. And I think the bottom line is for parents that, the next time they find themselves nagging their teens or feeling like it, stop and think about it. And there are some great strategies for managing that nagging. All right, Lisa, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Mike.